catch up with the UFC at all lately?
Here and there. I mean, I try to kind of keep an eye on it.
I haven't,
Deep down in my soul, I'm a fan. So,
despite the politics that go behind it.
despite
I am.
all the nonsense,
Uh,
yeah.
I actually haven't been doing a very good job keeping up with that. Just dealing with some other stuff. But I saw a couple headlines. There's a Fight Island, something about they're basically
Yeah,
doing like something like a
doesn't
something for
surprise.
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
It wouldn't surprise me that Dana White would pull that off.
Yeah,
He's a driven individual. We've known that for a long time.
I know he just got started, but if anyone knows actual details about what, like, I think there's a fight happening this Saturday. Like, I think people are actually fighting, like, fight week is here. Like,
Yeah, but
if anyone
It's in
knows.
Florida.
Oh,
It's not on Fight Island. It's
oh,
on,
okay, okay. So it's a sanctioned.
yeah,
It's actually a sanctioned event. Oh, okay,
yeah,
good to know.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
all right, all right.
They're doing three events this week, all on the same venue.
I've been out of
So,
the loop.
well, this fight card coming up is pretty dope. I mean,
Who's fighting
if you
again?
take away all the risks that they're taking and all of this
Hmm.
craziness. But here's the thing, people have to understand, like, that everybody gets all riled up and crazy and, they're irresponsible and this and that kind of behavior. And listen, we're talking about individuals with a lot of money and with the kind of money that they can take all the necessary precautions.
Hmm. Hmm.
You know what I mean?
I think I saw a headline with like Anik, Rogan, and DC are going to be like 6 feet apart, but they're all still going to be commentating.
No, but listen,
Uh,
they're testing every single one of these people for COVID
yeah,
before they come in, right?
dealing with antibodies as well.
So
Yeah, the antibody test as well. Yeah. Yeah.
they have the money that they can invest to put in all that's necessarily to, because if you get, like, you're going to be tested and you're going to be known whether you're positive or not within like a day or
Mhm.
whatever, right? So when you got money, you can make things happen, man. That's the way the world works.
In terms of the world of martial arts, it's nice to have something to kind of look forward to in that regard. Who do you got for this card? Off the top of my head right now, Tony Ferguson, Justin Gaethje. Who do you got?
I look at fighters into is like whether I like him as an individual
Yeah.
or whether I like him as a skilled fighter,
Mhm.
right? I'm not a big fan of Ferguson, but he's a fantastic fighter.
I
Creative, on the very creative, and when you create that much chaos and unpredictability when you
I see.
fight,
I see.
oof, man, it's like live by the sword, die by the sword kind of mentality, because he takes a lot of risks, but it hasn't caught up with him yet, right? And
I
he
think the
causes a
craziest
lot
thing.
of chaos. He causes a lot of havoc, and then it just throws fighters off. And and he's proven over and over again that stuff like I've even mentioned before, like you need to develop your cardio and your physical attributes first. That should be like super important, and then right along there is your skill set, right? Your technical abilities. But
It
man,
seems like he's very much so very
you can
he's
be
a very
you can
physical
have
person.
the most powerful right hand in the world, but if your cardio is garbage, then you know what I mean. So
Mm-hmm.
he's a cardio machine, man, and he's found an intelligent way to win fights where he knows that his elbows cause a lot of damage, and he's focused on that a lot. You can see that in his fights. He tries to land them often from all angles, and he just bloodies people up. And and the thing is, there's a lot of psychology that goes into fighting as well. So when you take a nasty cut, right, and all of a sudden you're bleeding all over your face, your gloves, you're eating some of your own blood, like you're tasting some of your own blood, it starts to mess with your head, you know what I mean? And he just bloodies people up right away. And
Have you been cut in a fight yourself? I'm curious just because I've never had the experience at all. Like I've never actually had to
um
participate. Like, even in sparring or anything like that.
in sparring, but never, like, not in fights, no. But in
No, no.
sparring I have, yeah.
Because I remember Dominic Cruz even talking about that in
Small
some
stuff, small stuff.
freaks out. He freaked out in
Small
the loss against Cody. Okay, I see. I see.
small stuff. Nothing like that I needed stitches on or anything like that.
Mhm.
Been lucky that
I went
way.
on a tangent. I went on a bit of a tangent there. No, but please continue with that. So that's your take on Tony. What about Justin Gaethje?
He's one of those, like, if you're a fight fan, you can't help but like this guy because
Yeah, dude, just
yeah,
bleed, man.
again,
Like, come on.
he just you know He just goes out there and gives it his all. And you gotta respect that. I just wish he was a little bit more strategic with his fight style because, I think it seems to be very like typical of wrestlers. Like they just fall in love with punching people in the face and then they forget about the fact that they're really high level wrestlers.
Yeah,
And that there's almost like they forget that they have another element that could give them, a path to victory other than trying to punch somebody in the
standard
face.
bang, 100%. Yeah,
So it's hilarious to me, and I think it comes from the mindset where these guys understand. Keep in mind, like there's so much that goes into this that maybe the average person doesn't think about or is not aware of. But remember, wrestlers, they're according to their rules, they only I think have 2 3 minute rounds. So 3 minutes, you go hard as you can, and you go as fast as you can, as hard as you can. You give it everything you got. You see wrestling, man, it is a grind. And then they go. They get their score. They get okay, and then they have 1 minute break, and they go for the second round, the same thing, go, and then they have a point system, obviously. But when they go into MMA, and now you have 5 minute rounds, 5 minute rounds, wrestling, they started to realize that wrestling at that super high pace, it gets you tired.
It's not sustainable.
It's not sustainable, right? And then so they've become a little bit more reserved with their wrestling, and they realize they're athletic, they're powerful, and they can hurt people by punching them, right? So, and you see it all the time. These high level wrestlers, when they connect, man, like Tyron Woodley comes to mind.
Yeah.
And that dude, and even Usman, guy again may not be the best striker, but he hurt. What's his name? His last fight, right?
Colby Covington?
Yeah, man, dislocated his jaw, or whatever. And even like Khabib, like he dropped Conor, man. He dropped Conor. So these guys.
On paper, Conor's the better striker, right?
These guys have power, man. They have power. The only difference between Khabib and these other guys is like he knows my path to victory, and that's I cannot wrestle anybody, So, and that's the thing. I wish they would take some of Khabib's lead. Like if you're a super high level wrestler, you should be taking like Khabib's blueprint. Take people down, maul them until they gave up. They get eventually they give up position and you choke them out, right? So.
We're getting a little bit off. I want you to make a decision.
So I like both guys. Oh man, that's a hard one. But if I had to pick someone, I would pick because if it's like die by the sword, live by the sword, die by the sword kind of mentality, then I have to pick Ferguson on this. Yeah, I have to because like when he's been hurt plenty of times, but people can't finish him. Where Gage has been hurt and. He's been hurt, he's been finished, or he's lost fights when he got hurt. So
I had the Poirier fight, but it was heartbreaking to see that finish.
Yeah, right. So a great fight, by the way, good fight. That was an awesome fight. And I'm a fan of Poirier, a good fighter too. Yeah. But unfortunately, he's always going to be top 5, but he's going to always have a hard time beating that number 1, number 2.
I've been a big fan of him since actually when he beat it was Max Holloway's first fight. When he beat him in the back when they were starting.
That was a long time ago. Yeah, I can't.
That was a long time ago. Their first fight.
I can't remember. I can't remember all that, man. I can't remember all this stuff. You crazy?
Just remember, and I think James is watching right now. Just remember me and him watching Poirier and keep an eye out for him back when we were still like.
Right, good fight. He's a good fighter. Oh, he finally found his home at 55 because a lot of these guys, they have to play the game and see which division suits them better and. I think cutting to 45 was, hurting him.
Detrimental. Really, clearly.
But now that he's at 55 and he looks huge and powerful and yeah, he looks good at that weight. And that's tough, man. It's tough. Yeah. Weight classes are a little bit tricky right now.
I'm not here to disparage any like a professional's punching technique, right? But at the same time, like while he doesn't look like he has the fastest hands, it's like every shot that Dustin Poirier lands, it looks like it's just like he's thudding you with the sledgehammer every single shot.
No, he's definitely has punching power, yeah, for sure.
Let's move to the co-main event then. Cejudo or Dominic Cruz?
What do you have there? I'm rooting for Cruz, but I have a feeling that he's past his prime and too many injuries and Not sure if he can go 5 rounds. His cardio's always been good, but man, that guy, he wins a fight and then
He's
disappears
gone
for
for 2 years.
disappears for 2 years and wins another fight and disappears for another 2 years. I
Well,
wouldn't
to
be
be fair, it's
like,
not just winning
I
a
would
fight;
not
it's
be,
winning belts.
I would not be shocked though if he won though. I wouldn't be like, oh my God.
Yeah,
I'd be like, yeah, he's a good fighter who's got
yeah.
a very good record and he's beat some really tough, some tough competition.
I
So
straight up, I straight up discounted him against Dillashaw when I remember that like his return fight to
no
Michael
way,
Bisping.
man. No,
I thought Dillashaw was going to take that. I thought like he's Cruz 2.0. He's better, faster, more powerful.
it's experience, man.
Apparently, yeah,
Experience.
no, clearly.
You know.
Well, okay, like, what do you think is the Henry
Oh,
Cejudo's
the
key to
one thing I
winning?
don't like, just to kind of point out, that I don't like when, veterans come out of nowhere and they get title shots. I don't like that.
Fair enough.
I think that's unfair to the rest of the division that's been progressing along. But and I don't like the fact that the champions get to decide who they want to fight. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
that's been a big
you're the
trend.
champ now, so now you have to decide. No, man, you got to defend the belt against the number one guy in the division, whoever that is, right? So
Yeah.
I don't
No,
like
it's
it, but I can
yeah.
see why. I understand why the decision that goes behind making these decisions. Is it right? Mm, who am I to say, right? But if this is what, remember, Dominic Cruz is a company man too, so
This is true. Yeah, he's actually
right,
yeah. He's,
so
I forgot he's competed. Um, I honestly think Cruz takes it. Actually, I do think like layoff or not, I do actually think Cruz takes it. That's my hot take.
he's got a reach advantage. He's got a height advantage. He moves really, really well. I don't think he's going to be taken down that easily. But it's. I mean, we're talking as much as Cejudo is cringe boy. He's really, really good, man. Like
He's no,
he's really, really good.
that's undeniable. My take. The reason
Like
I
I
have
don't
that
know if
take.
you guys have you seen like the countdown show or any
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
some of his lady. No, okay, then I won't go into it.
Oh, well, okay. Give like without going into grotesque detail, like please no. Then like
Well, there was like
in
a
a nutshell,
wall.
please.
There's a wall that he was displaying from his home, and in wrestling, they have these awards. They look like stop signs,
Yeah.
right? Like I think it's for All American or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an All American, or I know it's like not easy to get those. They look like stop signs, and they have like some kind of wrestling USA wrestling thing in the middle. And he has like 10 of them, and come on, like this is crazy. Like so like he's got those are not easy to get, and he's got a serious collection. And then his I believe he may have won. I'm not sure if he's won how high he got like in the world rankings of wrestling, but
That's obviously.
winning a gold medal in the Olympics is not easy by any means.
Wait, he has a gold medal from the Olympics
Yeah.
in wrestling. No, that's a joke. No. uh,
You got me going there for a sec. I was
just
like,
kind of watching.
where have you been, man? COVID hasn't been that long. Jesus.
um, I'm basing my take on Dominic Cruz versus Demetrius Johnson. I know DJ was still fresh, like he was in the wrong weight class, but like I remember just think like the fact that he's moving up and they're like similar size. I just remember seeing like DJ was clearly faster, which is weird seeing that like Cruz not having the speed advantage. But I also just remember Dominic Cruz just absolutely manhandling him, like just through merit of size.
Bigger, man. Just a bigger guy.
Dude,
Just a bigger dude.
I think Cejudo, if Cejudo, like you said, I wouldn't be surprised if Cejudo wins myself, but at the same time, it's I believe in Cruz. I believe in Cruz. Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't. It'd be cool. I like the guy. I think he's a good fighter. I just don't like the fact that he's probably going to be injured again for another 3 years.
Okay, honestly, if he beats Cejudo, it's like, dude, retire, like finish on
No,
top.
but this is what I don't like about these things, though. Because look, he retires, then what? Now you have to do a contenders fight, and then next
Oh, you can
fight
get
is
the
the
belt back.
championship fight. I
I
don't know.
remember Ryan Faber pulled that recently. He fought Ricky Simon. Like, and I remember being a big fan of Ricky Simon. He beat Ronnie Yaya. Like he shoulder checked him, got a takedown off of that, and then Faber just comes back off of retirement, just drops him with one punch and wins. And then
Yeah.
he ends up fighting Peter Yan and while he looked good, gets brutally knocked out. Anyways, the stalling of divisions is not. It's like it feels like pointless. Like it feels like those fights shouldn't really have happened in the first place, right? Uh, so,
No, it's a
um,
good card. The heavyweight fight, man, with Ozenstruck and Ngannou. Oof,
oh,
my God, that's a lot of power for one cage. You
the
know,
big boys are
geez,
in there.
both of them are in like big boys and powerful men.
I don't know
I
how.
can't really pick one on that one. I'm leaning towards Nagano just because he's bigger and maybe more powerful.
The only thing I've seen of the other guy is he knocked out over him. Knocked out, no, not over him.
Oh,
Sorry, no, he did knock out over him. He split his
yes,
lip in half.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Good striker,
poor
man.
over.
Like good kickboxing record. Like good
Hmm.
fighter.
Okay,
You
okay.
know, no, people may not know much about him, but he's actually a legit good striker.
I haven't. I'll make sure to look into him when I got some time.
He's a good
Um,
striker.
but
Anyway, too many fights to go through on this card. It's a huge card,
fair
man.
enough.
You know.
Fair enough. Okay. Okay. In that case, just last one because this one's actually like star power and whatnot. Cerrone versus Pettis. Last one.
Oh, come on, Cerrone, retire already.
Okay. Cool.
I like the guy,
Oh, yeah.
good dude, good fighter. But I think Pettis is still very young. I mean, he's got a lot of fights, but he's still young. He's early 30s, so I think so. He's still got a lot of fight left in him. But
After that
I
Wonder
think
Boy knockout
Cerrone,
really
man. I
stinks.
think Cerrone. How many losses in a row is that now?
I
Do we know?
a lot.
I
In
think
fact,
it's four. No, is it four or three?
I wouldn't be. Let me scroll down here right now. Yeah, he's on a 3-fight loss streak.
So he loses this one, and I
That's
don't
four,
know.
right?
I think they might push him out.
Mhm.
Man, I hate that's
Um.
the one thing about the UFC that people don't really understand. You know, they come across sometimes like they care, but fighters are there to be used as much as possible to get as much money as possible, and then once they're past their whatever, they're discarded.
Throw him in the trap. Yeah.
And
They'll
again,
find a
like
new star
Cowboy
eventually.
still has a lot of star power. He's liked by a lot. Like he's got a huge following in the U.S. And but I think, man, this guy needed some like serious time off, and the UFC just keeps throwing him back in, throwing him back in. Well, he's
It
got
goes
the
both
most. Yeah,
ways.
but listen, there's a reason why he's like, oh, he's got the most fights in the division or most KOs or he's got all these records. But if you see how many times he fights every year, that's why he's got all these records. They keep throwing him back in, throwing him back in. He's a popular fighter who brings a lot of views to the UFC, you know? But this guy needs like a year or two off, man. Like he's too much, man. It's too many fights. And dude, have you not made enough money? I'm just curious. Like you're fighting so much. I'm sure you made really good money off of that Connor fight,
Yeah.
right?
Actually,
Like
there's some internet stuff about that, but I'm not going to go. Like, apparently he took a really bad deal, allegedly.
he took a
Like, he took a
what?
flat rate. He took a really bad deal. It was a pay-per-view headliner, right? But apparently he just took a flat rate. He didn't care.
No, man, no
Allegedly,
way,
from what I
no
read.
way. That's bullshit. No
That's
way.
it.
I would not
Okay.
take a Connor fight. I would not take a fight with Connor
To emphasize your point,
if I didn't have some kind of pay-per-view cut.
to emphasize,
Nobody's gonna take a fight with Connor without a pay-per-view cut, man.
it would be insane not to. Just want to bring like he is the money fight. He's the money fight in mixed martial arts.
Yeah, why would I want to take that fight if I wasn't gonna make a ton of money?
But to
He,
emphasize your point, three finishes in a row, like Tony Ferguson, TKO, doctor stoppage, Justin Gaethje, TKO, punches. That was a brutal one. Conor
mhm.
McGregor, TKO, head kick and punches. Not fun.
No, I don't know. I think he's coming back too soon. But he wants to fight. He's got this attitude, and the UFC loves it. Like, great, right?
We'll wring you dry. We'll put you to work.
Yeah. And
I want
Same thing with Pettis. They're doing the same thing with Pettis.
That's really like from going from like champion to go be like and being on like the poster boy for Wheaties on the cereal box to where he is now.
That was one case that happens once in a while. Too fast, too soon.
You
You know what I mean?
you
We got
yeah.
pumped too fast, too soon. Into the limelight, into a championship. Reign
They really
too
pushed him
fast, too
hard.
soon, and then that's what happens sometimes, right?
when he fought Gilbert Melendez, I was like, holy, like, this guy's unbeatable. He beats you anywhere. Submission, so
Yeah.
even though his wrestling
No,
wasn't
he's a
great.
great fighter, very
Oh,
good fighter. But I think sometimes when the losses that he's gotten is you can see in the fights when you watch the fights, he's either unmotivated from the start or you see him be broken like throughout the
yeah,
fight. He's
yeah.
one he's typical fighter, talented fighter where as long as everything is going his way, it's going to be a highlight reel. As soon as it turns into a really hard fight, you can start to see him round by round slowing down and you know
Things start to crumble a little bit
and
eventually.
things starts to not have as much you know confidence, right?
Right, right.
But you can
Um,
see, just watch the fights, you can see it. The fights
mhm.
that he's lost is you know it's
I know what you're
usually
talking
you can
about.
tell that he's not like doesn't have that. I don't know. Who am I? I don't want to judge.
It's
It's
true
tough.
though, but like you can
It's tough being in there, man. It's not
no,
easy.
it's not to disparage that. I think people the misconception is that like mentally breaking is it's not like you choose to quit. It's like over time your body shuts down, right? It's like I don't know.
It's
That's my
tough,
take
man.
on it.
It's tough when
Yeah.
you're fighting the like, and that guy never has an easy fight. Like he's fighting top five all the time, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Dustin Poirier, Nate Diaz, Tony Ferguson, Max Holloway. It's like those are his last bosses. That's it. It's
yeah,
not all former champs.
yeah.
This is a good moment to segue into our real topic for the day, though, which is actually timely because Pettis is actually a good example of this in a modern context. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and its future in mixed martial arts. Obviously, it was like Royce Gracie started it all, you know, like 7 people left, right, center, 170 pounds, taking out guys at 250, no big deal. When you started getting into mixed martial arts and started training, like getting into your heyday and training really hard, where was Jiu-Jitsu at that time period? I'm not talking about like early days, but like who were the superstars of your time?
I don't think off the top of my head that we had a lot of like BJJ crossover at first,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you know. As far as like, well, I'm wrong. I think it was just different. The jiu-jitsu as a sport, what it is today, wasn't the same back then. So a lot of the big name stars crossed over into MMA quite quickly. You know, we had all of the Gracie family,
Yeah,
you know, fighting, and then we had a bunch of other superstars crossing over, and even like guys like Marcelo Garcia tried to cross over,
yeah, that one play.
and then a few others that I can't really think of right now, but there's definitely a lot of like as soon as you won a world championship in jiu-jitsu that you tried to cross over into MMA. And that was
You
because of
just blew my
money.
mind.
Because of money, right? There was more money in MMA back then. Like you're not making any money with jiu-jitsu back in those days. Nothing, right? So as soon as you made a name for yourself, you know, even like guys like Shaolin went over into MMA, and he was a fantastic fighter. You know, so the only I think person who was a star back then, like Fabrice Verdun, was a good example,
Oh,
right?
Verdun. Yeah,
Right? He crossed over into MMA pretty soon after he won his world championships. I think the only one that didn't really get into MMA was Terere. I don't think he really got into. I don't even know if he fought MMA, but a lot of the other stars, you know, as soon as they did well in jiu-jitsu, they would cross over into MMA because it's the money. There was more money in fighting MMA and fighting UFC. Um, but I think it's different now. It's a lot different now because the sport has evolved. Jiu-jitsu as a sport has evolved where you know you have sponsorships. Some tournaments are giving out money now. I believe like if you're the world absolute champion, the IBJJF gives you like 10 grand or something like that. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that.
yeah, yeah.
But there is
That's true.
money.
Yeah.
There is money to be made
Mhm.
in sport jiu-jitsu now, and now we have like Fight to Wins, Polaris's, you know, and EBIs and
All these other ones, right?
the Kasai's and all. So you can, man, you can make okay money. I'm not saying like, well, Gordon Ryan is a good example. Man, he makes a good living just competing in these super
Classic.
fights that he gets into all the time, right? And I think that he doesn't get involved for less, like for anything less than 10 grand to start. So he's doing okay. Um, so there's money to be made in jiu-jitsu now. So you'll see that there's less and less and less and less jiu-jitsu, high-level jiu-jitsu guys crossing over to MMA. You know, I think the last hurrah right now that we're looking at is, and again, he's an, considered maybe a bit of an older generation guy, and that's Rodolfo Vieira,
Oh, right,
right?
yeah.
So,
He just made his debut.
no, I think it was his
Oh
second
no,
fight,
second
second
fight.
fight in
Yeah, yeah,
UFC, right? So, and again, I think he's the last of the old guard that has
yeah.
like, done well in jiu-jitsu and crossover into MMA.
I just want to pause here
I
for a
don't
second.
see it. Well, and then there's what's his name? Uh,
Von Von Beltor? Are we thinking about the same guy?
no, you fought in UFC.
Oh, never mind. Okay, I
You're
was
not.
thinking about that guy. He beat Musasi recently. And he retired because of brain issue. Lovato Jr.
Oh,
Lovato Jr.
Lovato Jr. Yeah, again,
Yeah,
he's an older, again, one of
yeah.
those same along the same like timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Along the same timeline. Where these guys are crossing over, and even like what's his name, welterweight guy from UFC. He's really good too.
Oh,
Oh
Gilbert
damn it!
Burns.
Yeah, Gilbert.
He just it's
Again, but when
passing
was
the torch. He
yeah, but
knocked out
listen,
Danny Burns.
but look at it. When was the last time? When was the last time he won the Jiu-Jitsu World Championship? It's
I actually
from
don't follow him.
it's from the same generation as Rodolfo and those other guys.
Oh,
You
he's
know what I mean?
older. I didn't realize.
He's well, he was younger, but he was competing along the same timeline,
I see, I see, I see.
right? So I don't see too many guys. I mean, I know someone mentioned here Gary Tonin. Yeah, but what has he really done? Not much yet.
He
You know
won
what I
debuts
mean?
and won.
He's won one or two fights and won, but you know.
Yeah. Oh, Jacare Souza. Well, Jacare
There's a
Souza
good
is of
question here.
course.
Kevin asked, was Jason McDonald one of Canada's first BJJ guys to fight in UFC? Did he ever train at Shaw's? Yes, he did. He trained with us for quite a bit. He's a good friend of mine. He's been in the US, in the Colorado area, I think, for a very long time now. He runs a fitness, like he's very good, and he knows a lot about bodybuilding and being, fit, and he's in that industry down there. He did quite well in his MMA career. He trained with us for a few years, and then he moved down to the US. Yeah, good
That's
guy.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
legit.
super cool guy. Yeah.
Oh, he fought Damian Maia when Damian Maia was coming up too. Like
No, no,
that's
no.
insane. No?
No, I don't think so. We're not talking
Oh,
about the same guy.
oh, okay. Never mind. Okay, I thought.
We're not talking about the same guy.
Oh, no? Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. In that case, never mind. Anyways,
Yeah, Damien. I know other guys are bringing up. Yes, Damian Maya, Zachary Souza. Again, these are the last hurrahs. I'm talking about who now of like all of the top level BJJ guys right now. Who's crossing over to MMA? Is it a big percentage or a very small percentage? Right? It's a very small percentage because there's opportunities now to make money just doing jiu-jitsu as a sport. You know, so I don't see it again. It's gone upside down. Where okay, our main purpose back in the day was to train jiu-jitsu for MMA. Now most people train jiu-jitsu for the sport of jiu-jitsu and have very little interest in doing MMA. And
someone
that's just the way it is.
someone's brought up someone very like who's influenced me a lot, Ryan Hall. Like actually that he's a really good segue
He's not
into
a new generation guy. He's
this
not
is
a
true.
new generation guy. Come on, man.
Okay,
Again, when
but
was the last time Ryan Hall competed in the IBJJF tournament or any kind of jiu-jitsu tournament? Do you understand? He's not a
very
like
true.
a, you know what I mean?
I gotta ask. So if before like Hoist Gracie shocked the world, and then we started seeing people like using jujitsu just take down strikers, and then now we kind of see like people nullifying jujitsu, and then people are getting more creative in this modern context. I guess
Hmm.
how do you think where do you see jujitsu be like going into the future?
I think jiu-jitsu is always going to be a big part of MMA.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You have to train on all areas. This we know this. We know you got to train boxing, Muay Thai, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. Like we know this. Um, but I don't think you're gonna see as many finishes because of the rules. The rounds, 5-minute rounds. you know, really threw a bit of a monkey wrench into the whole jiu-jitsu strategy, which is, you know, to wait till your opponent gets tired and then eventually capitalize and try to submit them. You know, so when you have 5 minutes and you have these super high, what was jiu-jitsu's advantage? Well, it was taking people down to the ground where they didn't really know much about it. You bring in these high level wrestlers who now can dictate if the fight stands or goes to the ground. And, you know, all they need to do is fundamentally be sound with their structure, their base, and their posture, and, you know, avoid getting submitted. And then they, you know, they get stood back up if there's not much going on the ground. It's just really stacked against the jiu-jitsu tactician. You have to be someone of a specialist like a Damian Maia. You know, again, super worked really, really hard. He understood, okay, if I have to use my jiu-jitsu, I got to get people to the ground. So he worked insanely on his wrestling. And even like the way he pulls guard sometimes is very strategic.
Mm-hmm.
It's not in a dumb way. It's a very smart way to do it. So
Shoots not single, doesn't get it. Pulls
you
half.
have to be it's like even the Ryan Halls, for example, like super dangerous with the leg lock game. You know what I mean? Like he's not the greatest striker or wrestler, but man, if he goes after your legs. So I think that you may have an advantage if you can specialize.
Mhm.
You know, you need to specialize in something. You know, Damian Miner gets your back, it's over. You know, Ryan Hall, Ryan Hall gets into your legs, it's over. Zachary Souza mounts you, it's over. You know what I mean? So you need to specialize. You're gonna need to specialize. You won't be able to just get away with a basic game. You know, I think a lot of it is because some of the old methods may be kind of been thrown to the wayside, and people like if you practice just sport jiu-jitsu the way sport jiu-jitsu is played now, and you try to cross over into MMA, it's not going to be an easy transition.
Yeah, I can
You
see.
know what I
Yeah,
mean? You have to train for years with learning how to block and defend and move and use your guard, you know, and use your close guard and understanding like where the strikes are coming from and how to like there's these are things that need to be taught and learned, and they're not taught in the modern context of the sport. You know what I'm saying? So you really need to, you basically have to go back. So if you're a modern jiu-jitsu player and you want to go and cross over to MMA, now you need to go back and relearn a whole bunch of stuff.
I think that's a beautiful statement right there because I think someone
And
that
that,
embodies this really well. Hickson Gracie,
so if you,
his
yes,
style.
and
Yeah.
if you like, if if you try to go too soon, and that's why maybe you see maybe some modern jiu-jitsu guys are not faring as well in the sport or whatever, and crossing over into MMA. It's not because they're not good jiu-jitsu practitioners; they are, but maybe they're just not as sharp in that BJJ to MMA context, where you know they haven't practiced that for a long time. That realm
Yeah.
of getting hit while you roll, you know. So again, like I think jiu-jitsu is not like where it is at this point. You know what I mean?
I want to.
So
I want to. Yeah.
and look,
Please.
Josh made a good point here. Like Rodolfo took his time there making this transition to MMA. He took a couple of years just to focus on, you know, the style, that fighting style for the cage, which is totally different. But Rodolfo has a great style for MMA as far as like he's a top player. He likes to be on top and he's very dominant. So if he just needs to, you know, sharpen up a few things here and there, and I think he will make a good transition. But or he has made a fairly good transition. But man, I think the odds are stacked against Jiu-Jitsu now. The way MMA works, and the way it's being played, and the rounds have a lot to do with it, man. Like 5 minute rounds, you know,
What
and
what
high and
what
super
about the
high
5 minute
level,
rounds?
super high level caliber wrestlers coming in. You want to change, or you want to give Jiu-Jitsu uh, a better chance, right? To do better, man. Allow kicks when guys are on their knees. Allow kicks to the face
Oh,
when guys are on their knees. Not when they're standing, when they're on their knees. Okay, it's going to change the game a little bit. Like,
You can punish a wrestler for doing a sloppy shot that way. Like there's a lot of advantages to that. Like you can't just
no,
like
I'm talking about like just, how you're not allowed to kick the guy in the face
yeah.
if he's on his knees, like in your guard, for example. I can't push away and kick you in the face.
Oh, I see that kind of stuff. Okay.
If you're like, if I just pushed away and went for like a up kick while you're still on your knees, so
Yeah,
people are
you're not
just
close.
comfortable being in close guard, right? They don't want to take the risk of pushing the person away because they're going to get their guard passed. But if they were allowed to like maybe cause
Up
some
kick him.
damage, yeah, up kick him or
Yeah.
cause some damage, maybe even find a way to get back up, there's it would change a little bit. I think I'm not saying completely overhaul the thing, but it would change things up a little bit.
Musasi has a couple finishes like that. He finished Jacare Souza like that. And then not only he also Anderson Silva guy has a DQ loss, which is realistically it doesn't look like a loss, but he knocked out Yushin Okami with that with the up kick from closed guard like while they were on their knees. That makes sense.
I think it would change things up a little bit. Maybe you might actually get a couple more KOs that way, or TKOs. But again, it's just for jiu-jitsu practitioners to catch up in the wrestling game is going to be super crucial. You know,
Well, what do you think?
they
What
they
do you think wrestlers
as
are
long
doing
as
to
high
nullify
level
jiu-jitsu?
wrestlers are coming into the game and they're learning to nullify jiu-jitsu and again take advantage of like making the fight boring so the referees stand them up. Like there's so much, I like the old style pride. I wish they would go in the sense that first round 10 minutes, right? And then the other two rounds, 5 minutes. If you make it that first round a 10-minute round, it would change fights dramatically. You'd get more knockouts, more jiu-jitsu finishes,
It's
because
tiring. It's very
yeah,
different.
exactly, man, exactly.
You have to pace yourself completely different for that first round. And I
Yes,
don't even want to
yes.
talk about getting to round 2 and 3. That sounds like ooh, like you got to be really tactical about how you push the fight now in terms of energy expenditure. I want to ask though, what is it specifically about wrestlers that what are they doing that nullifies jiu-jitsu so well in your opinion?
Well, then again, like a high level wrestler dictates whether the fight stays standing. I mean, this is cliche. Like they dictate whether the fight stays standing up because you can't take him if you can't take him down. If they're good wrestlers, you're not going to take them down so easily,
No, no,
or they can take you down.
okay,
And and again, all they need to do within the game is just nullify the guard play,
okay.
right? And you know, and I just don't think there's enough time to set things up with the jiu-jitsu guard that you know a lot of the people are playing. Again, it's hard to say, but it's basically like because you are these fighters are trying to concentrate on all areas, right? Unless they are specialized in something, they come from um, like something that you specialize in, then it's hard to get good at all areas. So if I'm coming into MMA now as a fighter, I wasn't a wrestler, I wasn't a kickboxer, I'm coming into the sport as a new entity, right? So now I'm learning boxing and Muay Thai, I'm learning wrestling, I'm learning Jiu-Jitsu, and I'm, you know, spreading it all out during my week or whatever. Are you really specializing in any one of those? No, you're not. You're not like, you'll see like when good strikers cross over, and as long as they can nullify the takedown, they're knocking
Mm-hmm.
everybody out, right? Why? Because
Adesanya.
they specialize in striking. Yeah, good example. Excellent example. Like same thing with high level wrestlers, right? They learn how to box. They're powerful, so they can cause damage when they strike, and if they can always take the fight to the ground whenever they feel in danger or they're being threatened. So I just if you're new to the game, you're just not going to be a master in any one of those areas. So it becomes where everybody's like almost cookie cutter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's doing the same stuff and nobody's really specializes or anything. I just don't think I hate to say it, but there's a lot of good fighters with a lot of good jiu-jitsu, but nobody like we said earlier, nobody like a Damian Maya or a Ryan Hall. It's just like, they catch you in that one situation and you're done.
Davi Ramos comes to mind, but he's not. He hasn't been doing like he hasn't been like a giant splash and like crack top five yet. It seems.
So when there's a good question here that we can maybe address here. When will jiu-jitsu become an Olympic sport? What needs to be done for it to be considered? And then someone jiu-jitsu said won't become a sport until they review the regulation uh, to match the Olympic rules. Listen, anything is possible. There are steps being made towards that by some federations, but it takes two things. One, there's not enough countries involved in jiu-jitsu for the IOC to consider it. There needs to be a minimum, a minimum amount of global, involvement for the IOC to be like, okay, there's enough members, so let's see. And the other thing is, jiu-jitsu is not, as it's played in some rule sets, is not very viewer friendly. So if you're not going to have views, if you don't have a big viewing following, or the average person can't watch, like, they're not going to tune in because it's boring. Like, right? So that's the thing, like all the other major sports, people don't necessarily need to practice them, but they will watch it. Mm-hmm. Whereas jiu-jitsu right now, the only people who watch it are people who practice it. Right? So they would have to be a lot of changes to how the jiu-jitsu is. And there's definitely some changes being made by some federations that I like, and I think it's going to make it more exciting, more viewer friendly, more action, and there's steps towards that. But until it's just too small. Jiu-jitsu is not big enough yet for even to, remotely be considered by the IOC.
How do you feel about ADCC rule set then, in terms of just entertainment factor? Not
too
much
close.
better?
It won't. No. It only because it resembles wrestling too much.
I see.
It resembles wrestling too much, and there's no way. Why are you gonna have? They already have wrestling. They're not gonna have something that's similar. It needs to be It needs to be extremely distinguished. There has to be a distinguished difference between like judo and wrestling, and jiu-jitsu is in that kind of middle, kind of somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'd like to see it formalized too. Before we move on to just strictly Q&A, I have one more question I want to grill you on.
Mm-hmm.
Let's play a thought experiment here. You're strictly just coaching MMA fighters right now. You're building someone ground up to go into modern MMA game. How would you develop and you're trying to build a submission fighter, guy that's like coming out there and hunting people down. What are the skills you try to foster in this individual to be successful?
So repeat your question.
If you were to raise a fighter from the ground up, and he
Mm-hmm.
has a very strong emphasis in jiu-jitsu, like we're gunning for a guy that subs people, what skills would you give him in particular to make sure he stays successful in the cage?
Man, come on. We just talked about it.
No,
Wrestling, and some more wrestling.
But like cage wrestling, what kind of like Greco-Roman, like any kind?
Any kind. Definitely on the outside you're doing freestyle, and then on the cage you're using more Greco. Yeah. But still, it's wrestling that's gonna take him to the jiu-jitsu realm.
Right.
Right.
And then from there, even if it's a simple game, what kind of game are you teaching?
If you look at the guys that are successful, I think nowadays it's also like the guys that transition better. Mm-hmm. And how to use distancing, like it's learning how to set up your strikes to set up your takedowns to set up your jiu-jitsu. Gotcha. Right? So it's not like I'm not striking for KO. I'm striking to create openings. Mm-hmm. Right? To get my takedown entry. I mean, look at GSP, was great at that. Like how he set up his double was with his jab and and all that, right? So
my frame of mind was that I was thinking about the specific things, but you're saying it's actually less about the actual specifics. You can handle that on your own, but it's actually just getting there in the first place is actually the biggest hurdle. Mm-hmm. If you want to be successful. Okay, cool. Yeah. No, that's
it's not about like if you're already awesome at jiu-jitsu for MMA, great. Now how do you get to the jiu-jitsu part? Right? You need to learn how to use your striking to set up your takedowns, and then get into that realm where you're good.
Cool. Okay, that's awesome. No, that's an answer I didn't expect, and I like that a lot. That's cool. Let's move straight into Q&A. let's move into Q&A.
Yeah.
Let's scroll up. So, good transition. Just looking at Josh, visual Prof fights. What do we got here? Jiu-Jitsu sport? No, Olympic sport. Muay Thai fighters are learning the ground enough for them to become
Yeah.
much more dangerous than MMA fighters.
Yeah.
Is combat sambo too dangerous?
No.
I don't know enough
No.
about combat sambo.
Combat Sambo is awesome, man. Combat Sambo is good. Really good. I think that as a sport, Combat Sambo has like the better transitioning towards MMA because of their rules and the way they play their sport. It's almost like amateur MMA, you know? So the only thing that's different is they wear a gi top so you can grab the gi and throw and use like judo and sambo throws. But as far as the
Very
way
cool to see.
they play when you watch combat sambo fights, it's almost like amateur MMA. So that's why these guys like when they transition to MMA, they have a better transition. They do better transitionally wise because they've already had like 100 MMA amateur MMA fights. They may not be amateur fights like in the cage or in the ring, but the style of combat sambo is like pretty much everything is allowed, right? So yeah, those guys they do well. But I
Well, I
think you
mean,
don't see too many like combat sambo guys in the UFC. It's because, man, again, Russia and trying to get visas and guys trying to get guys to come over and fight in the US it's not easy, man. Those guys struggle with that.
if I understand correctly, Russia has its own like giant promotion too, in like KSW, I think it's called. It's like
No, that's Poland.
not Poland. Oh, never mind. I forgot I said
Yeah,
it. But
yeah.
I imagine it'd be easier staying in Europe
I'm
and kind
sure
of.
they have fight cards there. The guy that used to promote Fedor had I forget the name of the thing, but
Oh, M1 Global.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
M1. Yeah. ACB is yeah, but they kind of on a hiatus right now. You know what I mean? So
I don't want to say too much, but there's like sketchy things about ACB if I understand correctly, isn't there? Aren't there?
yeah, I don't
Like,
want to get
yeah.
into that.
Cool. We'll cut right there. We'll cut right.
I'm not getting into that.
No, but so I meant would combat sambo be more likely to be than BJJ to make the Olympics, or
No,
also not popular enough still?
no, I don't
Well
think
yeah.
so.
So you mentioned that all countries like a lot of countries need to be involved to get them
Like
involved.
exactly, same thing. I think there's more people practicing jiu-jitsu globally than they do in combat sambo. You know what I mean? I think a lot of combat sambo guys in Russia are crossing over into jiu-jitsu because there's like almost like more competition, more opportunity for, again to make money and all that. Like I think jiu-jitsu is growing faster even than judo at this point. So
That's fair.
10 minutes.
Let's see.
Speak your mind, people. 10 minutes.
So we got going here. Well, if I just want to throw in another plug while I'm here, next week is IBJJF week. We cover the IBJJF in general. What I'm not gonna lie, as grappler, like there's a how do I say? I'm really guilty of this. I didn't really look into the rules or like the organization much. I just assumed, oh, it's IBJJF. They look official, but I think it's worth discussing because there's a lot that goes behind that
There's
I
a
really
lot of
get.
layers that goes into IBJJF and how it functions, and I have a love-hate
100%.
relationship with the IBJJF.
And we will be discussing all of those spicy topics next week. There's part one, part two. So beyond that, if
Please
actually like
like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can follow up on these all these Insta lives, and then also if you missed any of them, please go on there. We discussed a lot of things so far. So please go to our YouTube channel, Coffee with Costa, and subscribe, please. We're almost at our mark that we need to make those adjustments. So it'd be really appreciated if you would sign up.
it's good to see Nicholas. And speaking of Nicholas, he actually asked me a good question, like off camera a while back. And this is actually a whole topic in itself. In Creonte is Creonte? I don't know how do you say it with the
Creon,
accent.
yeah, Creonchi, Creonchi,
Creonte.
Creonchi.
What do you like? How do you feel about people getting their brown belt, purple belt, or even the black belt if they need to move? Do you think like how does that dynamic work?
Sorry, ask the question again. I was reading something.
Okay. So Nicholas is asking if you move away to another country, or like you have to move for whatever personal circumstances, and you're like
Yeah,
your
man, you
husky
know
baby with
what?
black.
Let's get into these topics another time
Okay.
because this
Cool.
karaoke thing is gonna be longer than 10 minutes.
Oh man, I love that. Oh guys, spicy
So
topic. Let's go.
let's bring that up another time. So how do I find Canadian fighters versus European fighters? Um, the one thing when we're going with to the JJIF Worlds, uh, which is again a separate federation that we compete at, there's more of a global flavor to it. It's not like IBJJF and you have just US, Brazil, right? The majority. And the most European countries have a lot of high level jiu-jitsu talent that competes in IBJJF tournaments too. So there's lots of talent, all globally, all over the world. Now, I think that Canada may have a bit of an advantage being like America's neighbor and that we get to compete in IBJJF a lot more. So we've done fairly well for ourselves at that JJF, and we've won, a bunch of world championships, and almost everybody manages to bring a medal home and to get on the podium. But there's definitely some really good talent in Europe as well. Like really, really, the Russians have like very good fighters, and some Scandinavian countries have some wicked talent. But there's definitely some other countries that didn't do as well, and I think that's because they're just not far along, maybe with maybe BJJ black belts or international level talent, or maybe they can't afford to travel to compete at IBJJF and stuff like that. So you know, it is what it is.
People are commenting on our beards, man. Guys, you're not doing me any solid favors here. Come on, come on.
Man, this is not even a contest, man. Come on, man.
It's genetics, man. It's genetics. Give me, wait till I'm 30. Wait till I'm 30.
So what?
It'll be like that. Trust me. Boom. Otherwise, I don't know.
I don't. Come on, Edgar. You're too much, man.
What are you guys? What's so? I guess to kind of wrap things up. I guess. What do you got? I don't know. In the next upcoming cards, or like just like who is there anyone you want to look you're looking out for personally in terms of jiu-jitsu fighters?
In the MMA,
MMA, specifically.
I'm interested to see how far Rodolfo goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm interested to see how far he goes, how well he does. Ryan Hall, we talked about him. We'll see how far he goes. Like, how long before someone nullifies his leg lock game, and then he's really gonna have to fight. You know what I mean? So
I feel the same way. It feels a little gimmicky. He's gaming the rules just a little bit.
I don't know. You take away that massive skill that he has. Is he? I don't see him as the greatest, most well-rounded fighter on the planet, right?
Do you have a favorite conditioning drill for BJJ, sir?
Favorite conditioning drill for BJJ? Man, I don't want to get into details, but you've been to my comp classes, and some of the drills that I do and some of the sequences and the stuff that we do is basically what I feel is best for it. The situation, I say situational sparring and going really, really hard on situationals is like the best way to do it. Because you can do a lot of, your strength and conditioning, obviously, that's a must. But if it's like jiu-jitsu based work, then situational sparring, but going all out, just go, 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 but only on specific areas. No, we're not talking about like full rolls. I'm just like, for example, okay,
From the mount, get out, stay on top.
yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, that's one example. But definitely like that's why I push those so much. Like,
I'm looking
because that relates 100% to live competing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like running on a treadmill is great for your lungs, yeah, but you're not running when you compete.
It's different energy systems.
Yeah, so if you need to focus on jiu-jitsu work, But the problem when people think, oh, I roll a lot. Yeah, but you can get lazy in rolls, right? You can get lazy in the rolls. But if I create scenarios and you have to fight full tilt in that one scenario, you're pushing your lungs, your grip, your, you know what I mean, like your position, it's that's the things that you have to create, because those
Just a
are
lot more repetition.
that's where you're basically recreating scenarios of a real match, right? And that's super important.
And the more it's skill development. Well, yeah, for actually a lot of
Yeah, brother.
a lot of sports in general.
I'm just responding to someone. Yeah, man. Let's get together sometime, man. Just reach out. We can go have a coffee, or just just reach out, and we can hang out, brother.
Otherwise, no, like in regards to just the skill development in general, it's just more repetitions in a specific domain, right? If you get the sweep, if you have that a sweep, but you only do it once around, versus you just get put back in that situation to have to try to rework it constantly. No, it's I wish I trained a little smarter when I was younger in that regards. Like, I feel it would have gone a lot better.
I could say the same.
I guess I know. It's just trying to treat story for all of us. I guess it's true. It's true.
Yeah, but just that's okay, man. Like, sometimes the best lessons learned are mistakes you made. So it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
No, but I guess when I transitioned to my MMA fight myself, it was like it's everything we just discussed. It was like between properly utilizing the cage and so the skill development. Like, it wasn't just like you got to do it once and that was it, right? It was, and just mindless sparring. Seiji just would put you up against the cage non-stop over and over again. I know it was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Yep.
So it's
scenario training. Scenario training is huge, man.
Oh, like I live by it now. Yeah, definitely want to do that a lot more.
But that, I know we're talking, like, there's 1 minute left, and I know we're talking about jiu-jitsu for MMA and stuff like that, but just so you guys know, don't reach out to me for MMA, man. Like, I don't coach MMA anymore. I'm not in that world anymore. I have no interest in it whatsoever. But if you want to talk BJJ, gi no gi, reach out. We can chat all day. But I am a fan of the sport of MMA, and I will always follow it. I'm always passionate about it, but I have no interest in that capacity.
I don't have much to offer. Actually, no, I have a few things to offer. If you want to message me, feel free.
Almost 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Any last minute
20 seconds.
Yeah, 20 seconds.
Much love and respect, everyone. Thank you very much, Michael, once again. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you Monday for some more crazy, juicy stuff. IBJJF, part 1, part 2. Take care. Take care, everybody.